know why we nuked Japan? It's very simple, and this has been confirmed multiple times. We didn't do it to hurt the Japanese. That's not ultimately why the decision was made. It was to test run our new invention, the nuke, and to show every country around the world why they needed to buy one and defenses against one from our engineers. So if you ever hear an Israeli Zionist or someone like that, or just a fool who's not Israeli or a Zionist yet is taking their talking points, and they say, well, America's built on stolen land, well, America dropped nukes on civilian populations, just know, on top of revealing what their intentions are, they also don't have nearly as much business acumen as the people that ultimately made the decision in America to drop the nuke on Japan, which was like an arm to the teeth, and would have sued for peace with a very, very firm hand, and would not have ceded a lot if we hadn't done what we had done. Ultimately, Hamas has consistently said that they don't want to be in the governance of Gaza anymore over the last month, and they have been said that that's not a non-starter. Your job is to lay down in the ditch and die, and then maybe we'll consider saving your women and children. Maybe they'll get hauled off in chains to join Israel's human trafficking circles, which include children. So, if I was Hamas, legitimately, I would not be taking any of those deals. The constraint Iran has shown, the patience Russia has shown, especially involving stuff in Syria, and the long-suffering and constitution that the Palestinian people have shown has undermined the genuinely evil tactics of the IDF in Israel. And we are living in a reality where things could have been a lot worse regarding Iran or Russia falling into various traps laid by the Netanyahu regime, which, mind you, has only attached itself to power in the last 5 years, specifically to keep Netanyahu out of prison. So all these random people that he's bringing in that aren't actually frequent flyers in Israeli politics are real prime freaks, even by Israeli standards. And Israel is a freaky country by international standards. So, literally, you put on a gigantic pedestal the worst people in your entire country. You are one of the worst countries in the world. You're very, very young. You're dealing with, growing pains. Growing pains is a really good way of describing that. It must suck to be Israeli right now. Legitimately. The whole Netanyahu rah thing that you could say in 2024, you can't really say that anymore. Very specifically, though, his kid, Yair Netanyahu, it seems like he is actually the one giving all these Republican politicians the hyper-online advice that, applies to a small subset of people online and nobody offline. And the people that it applies to online are so online that, Yair Netanyahu, they wake up in the morning, they're on the internet all day, on amphetamines, on the internet, staying up till 3 or 4 in the morning, on the amphetamines, on the internet, fall asleep, wake up the next day at 11 to 2, take more amphetamines, get on the internet every single day. And you can literally look at the guy and look, he has no muscles. He spends next to no time out in the sun. And very specifically, I'm not necessarily one to talk. I try to shield my skin from the sun. But very specifically, is a soft-handed boy. Specifically a boy, specifically soft-handed. And he's been seen cohorting, if you will, around neo-Nazis, yes. Duh. It's not just a catchphrase. Zionism and neo-Nazism aren't just good bedfellows. They share the same exact root. The same root that created the Nazis is the same exact root that created the Zionists and Israel. It's the root of theosophy and anthroposophy, specifically in the the deeper root is theosophy. This is drawing from religions, and then it goes into racial science, which is anthroposophy. This is actually derived from theosophy, and then it branches off into Nazism and Zionism. Both of these are racial, locked in place, no free will, racial, hard locked, qualifying philosophies. So it's good to keep in mind that, like, it is the same, and to keep, like, really, so many people, so many young people through the internet, they're getting caught up in thelema, they're getting caught up in occultism, they're getting caught up in Gnosticism and Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism. They're getting caught up in a lot of stuff, specifically based on the book clubs and the meme groups that they're part of online. And this is all part of the sphere. You know, if you go to the EDM scene, which is overwhelmingly dominated by Jewish people, you will notice that there's a lot of occultism and stuff like that, magic and, you know, gematria, number stuff, and sacred geometry is the biggest thing probably in the EDM scene, is the sacred geometry, which you see in a lot of the Persian art. All that is shot through various religions, and it comes up through theosophy into anthroposophy, and through anthroposophy emerges a new fountainhead, otherwise known as alien cultism. And it's very specifically because of the Semitic languages are alien to Indo-European languages. Semitic culture is alien to the culture that is somewhat shared by people in Eurasia, India, and Europe. Somewhat shared. In general, the European society in which Jewish people dwelled was alien to the culture that they maintained of their traditional Semitic culture. So you actually get, and it's very funny because it has a Star of David, you know, and it little swirls and stuff like that inside Star of Metatron. Naturally, it's not the Star of David. David's star was, you know, the Almighty, but that's his North Star, was the Almighty. But yeah, it has the Star of Metatron and some swirly stuffs on the inside, you know, which then the swastika is also a swirl. And if you look at the Theosophy emblem, it is the Ouroboros. And it has a reverse swastika, the sun symbol on the inside of it, and it has a Star of David, Star of Metatron, and it has the Hindu peace sign. I think that's what it's called. It's got the little squiggly thing. The Hindu most famous character in Hinduism means something spiritual or something like that. All that stuff stuck together, and that's the toolbox of theosophy that spiritual people, New Age people specifically, very specifically New Age people, if they call themselves New Age, they're being honest about the fact that they're theosophists. The New Age people utilize this to manipulate people who have experienced a Nietzschean death of God in their cultural visage. And so modernity, replacing all these things, the interwoven modern theosophical elements interwoven with modernity, such as, like, you know, AI worship, like Roko's basilisk and stuff like that. That's actually, you know, substituted. That's the, you know, what is the thing that vitamins that people take? Supplements. The supplementary spiritualism is theosophy, and it's what people need to not be anemic, spiritually anemic. Atheists and secularists are spiritually anemic, regardless of how many morals they have. They view the world as flat. All that I see right in front of me is all that there is. And that's a huge problem to grasping the actual deeper secrets of life that allows you to trust unseen plans to the point where you're actually achieving success at a higher rate than your peer group who doesn't trust unseen plans. And this is a consistent thing statistically that always manages to make the spiritual caste manifest on the very, very top. Now, what that spiritual caste decides to do with the rest of the people on the bottom of this feudal system, that determines where the society goes, and always have. The Aztecs were evil because genuinely evil. The Aztecs were evil. The Nahuatl culture was evil because its shamans, its priests, did Datura and Noxia. They did angel trumpets. They did the worst drug on the planet. The worst drug on the planet, unless you want to consider, like, derived scopolamine, you know, which is pure schizophrenia, pure paranoid delusional schizophrenia, pure delirium concentrated down into its highest form, like literally will have you in the psych ward for weeks. They were doing the deliriates, so like a level of hallucination far, far above any psychedelic, a level of horror that you're immersed in, unlike anything else. See, I've experienced delirium before. Everybody who has had an extreme temperature or like, got stung by a bunch of bees or something like that has experienced delirium before. It's just like real hallucinations that are indistinguishable from reality. Psychedelics are not like that. You can tell that you're tripping when you're on a psychedelic. You cannot tell that you're tripping when you're on a delirium. So like the lines between true and false are completely blurred along with all the rest of your peripheries on deliriums. And that's why the Aztecs were evil. That's why the Aztecs were evil. They had a horror cult as their priestly caste. Anyways, let's get into it. So, though it may be true that Gaza has been used as a weapons testing facility for over a decade, we are not like them. And I legitimately have no idea where the off-ramp for Zionism is. They just might crash out. God only knows what's going to happen and what the negative consequences of the individuals crashing out at the top of this little nascent, somewhat burgeoning philosophical state is going to do, because it's a theocracy at the end of the day. And theocracies are, they have their borders defined on philosophy, and that needs to be addressed. Christianity's borders were never clearly defined because of the missionary work, that it always, it's a complex thing. And that's exactly where our founding fathers, very, very intelligent people, noticed that the Anglicans were twisting the theocratic nature of their government against the religion of Christianity. And so they separated government and religion, the church and state. Is that a right idea? I don't know. But what I do think it is, I think it's a good idea for America. Because the checks and balances of religion exist in Europe. They do not exist over here. Christopher Columbus was a evil monster, a rapist, and a pirate, and a thief. It's like, in the fact that Italians clutch after Christopher Columbus and not Garibaldi, for God's sakes, or Bonaventura, or anybody else, is absurd. Just truly absurd. It just goes to show that Italians devoid of the Vatican, the true living Vatican, are definitely not the master race. Every race needs a religion, and the Italians, without true Catholicism, with the Catholicism that Italians have right now, has left them devoid of a true religion. They are spiritually anemic, and that's a big problem. Less and less families would be raising Dan Bonginos if Italians weren't so spiritually anemic, and that's the main issue. I don't have any issue with Italians for being born Italian. You like whatever sort of meat you like, You can walk on whatever streets you walk. You walk here, that's fine. One thing I really don't like, though, is uptaking anti-Christian, satanic culture and then calling it Italian. That's the mafia. That's something that was introduced to them by theosophical Zionists that were taking ancient cultic rituals and introducing pure and innocent Italians to these things, and then torturing very, very harshly, like testicles in a vice grip, whipped with a salty lash, and being electrocuted bad through Operation Gladio. And so, it's like Italians really need to get it together after that, recognizing things have gone really, really poorly around everything that they have ever built, and they need to get it together. Any Italian right now that's pro-Israel, Josh Moon, for instance, they really need to get it together. That's going to be a huge scar in their soul. It's going to take a very long time to heal over and to reconstruct everything bit by bit from around it. That's going to be a huge gash, a gouge in their psyche. I hate hippos. I legitimately hate hippos. A hippo named Lucifer just died, and the news keeps running. Rip Lou. I really despise liberalism, man. I really despise liberalism, and I hate hippos. Hippos are one of my least favorite animals. I dislike elephant seals, because bull elephant seals are so stupid and large that they very often kill baby elephant seals just for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Not even for like territorial reasons, but just because they want to. So elephant seals, not a fan. That behavior that behavior doesn't exist in walruses that are just as big. So there's something messed up about elephant seals, and you can tell. Elephant seal bulls, they're big, dumb lugs. They are really, really stupid. Like, really, probably one of the stupidest animals. Apparently the stupidest animal, like, actually is the flamingo, believe it or not. And, like, if you ever spent any extended time around flamingos, you can kind of understand, like, they literally have the brains of bugs. And not joking, scientists have figured out they legitimately have, like, the brains of butterflies. Flamingos are really, really stupid. But hippos and elephant seals, not a fan of, not me. No. Hippos are one of the deadliest animals, probably the deadliest animal in Africa. They're one of the deadliest animals on the planet. They're very mean, and they're very ugly, and they're not super ugly. I like their skin, you know, nice and shiny. But, like, in general, they're not the sort of... I would never want a hippo as a pet. Now, El Chapo Guzman, the Mexican cartel drug lord that the United States government was propping up, he had a bunch of hippos, and they're called cocaine hippos, and now they're loose in Central America, and the cocaine hippos frequently kill people. So, you know, those are the sort of people who actually like hippos. Twitter has definitely been further reduced to a pit of radioactivity and sludge, but the people saying it was fine under Dorsey are lying. That's the echo chamber talking. Some people just got huge hits of dopamine from their various moments in the sun that they achieved there. But whether they like it or not, dread it, run from it, it's all the same. Trump was ultimately the reason why Trump ever became popular. It's legitimately the only reason. Tom Homan is genuinely a much better representation of, or representative of, the average ICE agent than Stephen Miller ever has or ever will be. Stephen Miller lost tens of thousands of children he was responsible for during his first tenure as well. Actually, he's not in a position of the government right now. He's just kind of lingering around like a bad fart. But he's lost a lot of children, and ICE agents are aware of this. That information will spread around the various chat groups and chat rooms and text groups and stuff like that ICE agents are part of to conduct their business. That will spread. And Stephen Miller's already like berated ICE agents for not like busting down like kitchen, you know, like homes and like entering people's homes and dragging people they suspect out of there, you know, illegal, warrantless crap that would further consecrate ICE into a paralegal, extrajudicial paramilitary group. Whereas Holman is like legitimately, he's more concerned about the law, and he does view the problems as something to be solved and not just like strung along forever. You see, Stephen Miller is a disgusting Jew whose wife cheats on him with Elon Musk, and his disgusting Jew culture has made him think that by pretending to be you know, a Jewish version of a Nazi, which is, you know, just by pretending to be a Nazi, he'll get the same swag, he'll get the same aura that one of those Hugo Boss wearing Nazis in Germany would get. But the thing about those Germans is they may, you know, some of them might not have been a Nazi, but they're all part of this group. They're all stuck together in this group, specifically because Germany and Germans were tormented and harangued. Everybody in America is very, very comfortable. We're dealing with these issues in a very, very comfortable position. Even the people that may have lost their jobs because of immigrants, there's not a lot of them out there, have always had other jobs to attain to keep lights on and to keep a roof over their head. You know, we haven't had like factional warfare where you got blacks and then you got Hispanics and then you got whites and we're all coming together in groups. That happens in jail, right? And even then, it actually doesn't even happen that much because the groups understand that there's less to gain from conflict than there is from peace, and they try to keep themselves separate. My job is to go around to the various groups and make sure everybody is like talking and connected. That was my job. And that's something that I pride myself in. It takes a very, very brave and honorable and honest, not to toot my own horn, but seriously, this is not something for the weak-hearted or the uninitiated. You really got to care about people. You really got to go good at communicating in order to do this. But this is what I did, which is you got to communicate between the various factions wherever you are to make sure that conflict doesn't happen. Really, truly. And, you know, this whole various groups fighting each other racially, it just doesn't happen. It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy. We're all Americans, and we all have to deal with the complexity that is America. And there's one people that, after being saved by Americans, seems to have a horrible, horrible, horrible plan for us and a terrible outlook about the rest of the world. And quite frankly, you know, sometimes you wonder what happens if your grandfather didn't bleed to save, Jewish lives. Sometimes you just wonder. Because that's something you always know that happened, is that your grandfather bled to save Jewish lives. And here you are being shamed for not doing what? Not being a slave? Not being completely and utterly, like, wholeheartedly dedicated to serving a people while they kill children? Like, mind you, Gaza's been going on for a long time. A lot of people say, children this, children that. Yeah, show me the child bodies. You can see them all over online. You can see all the videos. You can see all the pictures. And guess what? It's been going on for decades. You've been able to see it all throughout this time. Gaza is a very highly educated populace, and they had cameras and they had phones. And they recorded all of this, and we've always seen this entire time. And because so many young men and men have died, have been killed, it is a population of 50% children, and a lot of them are dying right now. There's probably about 500,000 people that have died in the last 2 years, and you only want to park on numbers like 30,000, because that's one number that the IDF managed to vomit out a little while ago. Like, a lot of people have died, and Trump is more honest about these numbers. He'll Freudian slip that 300,000 people have died a couple of months ago, and that was before this massive starvation, water blockade in the middle of the summer. It's these Stephen Millers of the world, there's apparently not a shortage of them. Shocked here. I'm shocked. Apparently there's not a shortage of Stephen Millers of the world, but I have a feeling that they're very easily defeated if we all collectively go, now wait a minute. I thought you said that you're the victim. Why are you victimizing other people? Why are you trying to victimize me in this argument? What exactly are your intentions with my country? What exactly are your intentions with my friends, my kin, my brothers? What do you want to do to the people of my military? Where do you want to send them, and for what reason? People really got to start asking Zionists these questions. Because when we do, the cards will start tumbling. Trust me. Trust me, they're already in the process. Miller is a soft-handed little man whose yapping of xenophobic rhetoric only inflames tensions on the ground, and ICE agents know this. Miller's style of politics is encouraging to the very people who ran Israel into the ground over the last 2 years. But for the average person, it's genuinely embarrassing. Newscom is embarrassing. Miller is embarrassing. Adult men should not be acting this way in any way, shape, or form. Like, obviously, those are two men without any responsibilities. No children to take care of. Nothing. And naturally, like, Stephen Miller's wife is running off. That's so funny. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. The most cucked man in America right now. Imagine getting cucked by Elon Musk right now. Right now, of all times. It's understandable a year ago, but right now, you gotta be the biggest loser, my man. You gotta be the biggest loser. Points to Elon. That actually makes me, respect him a little bit more. He found the sickest person who's not even technically part of the cabinet, who is just kind of lingering around like a lurch. And not really, he's not tall, he's just this little goblin. But yeah, and he found a very big weak spot. And regardless of whether or not Miller slapped him in the face like a little pansy prick instead of punching him like a man, Elon actually already won that checker match. I feel kind of bad for Zionists, Death, despair, terror, will all dance behind their eyelids until they're closed for the final time. And some of them genuinely believe they're victims too. Like, genuinely believe they're victims, and that, persecution and anti-Semitism is around any corner. What a nightmare. What a horror. If you're a dual citizen, you're a documented immigrant of 2 countries and a citizen of neither. Full stop. Straight up. I encourage anybody to use that because it's 100% the sort of line that we need to start employing and like living by in order to solve the problem of dual citizenship. Well, how come you can be two countries' citizens? You only stay in one at a time. Oh, you're special, 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 special. You know, oh, I'm a special person. You know, I got a father in this country and a mother in this country because my dad was a jet-setting international businessman. Well, you still got to choose one. You got to choose one country to be loyal to. And if you don't, you get 0. All dual citizenships. All dual citizenship holders to Sikot now. You know, that's a joke, but it would be a horrible thing with lots and lots of innocent people caught up, which is already the process. But it would wake a lot of people up. It really, really would. I noticed a few people are calling Latinos pedophiles now. Talking about like quinceaneras and stuff like that. And donkey shows and stuff like that. Convenient! Literally never heard this up until the recent rounds of the LA riots. Very convenient. But I've heard the same line from people like Null over the last 2 years about Muslims in defense of turning Gaza into an abattoir. Well, let me just say, if you can kill babies, there's no logic that would dictate that you wouldn't molest them. Okay? You can obviously see that. That's very obvious logic. Yeah, sexuality comes into play. If you would kill them, anything else is on the table. Okay? If killing isn't a non-starter, I don't trust you to not do anything else on the list. And an Italian talk show host and some random Indians scraped off the poo-covered streets saying Epstein was a nothing burger, it ain't helping your case. Ain't helping your case. And it's really not helping the Trump administration, but I have a feeling that things will, despite Trump feels over Netanyahu wishing Biden a happy presidency and not contacting him after he lost in 2020, I feel like that's going to come into play for sure. Regardless of what Trump says about Israel or what he says in public about agreeing, there will be moves made behind the scenes that will continuously and are continuously make Benjamin jump through a few hoops that he may not have wanted to. We'll see. We'll see how that works out. Also, a friendly reminder that projection is, by far, the single most fundamental element of psychology. It's one thing you can always count on. If somebody knows nothing about the thing that they're talking about, they're just talking about themselves. You know, it first starts with the emotions that they feel about it, but then if they go into descriptors, sometimes you'll notice people saying completely wild descriptors that do not fit the thing that they're describing. Usually that's coming from inside of them. Something that they've experienced or something that they are or think that they are. And that is projected up out of them. That's Psychology 101. You know, it's the very basis, I think, because talking is projection. You're projecting the words that you think that person will understand to conflate your point along the lines of, right? So it's all projection. You're not actually telepathically communicating with each other. You're projecting what you think would help you communicate, and they're projecting back what they think would help them communicate with you. And it's back and forth projection. Projection is the foundation, the foundational block upon which all of psychology is built. Psychology, very, very important to learn. Much, much more important than sophistry. Greta Thunberg is so brave for trying to sail a ship filled with food and water into Gaza. They illegally intercepted her vessel in international waters and forced people to sign a waiver that noted that they were trying to illegally enter Gaza. Super funny letter of the law, devoid of the spirit of the law stuff going on. Lawyering from the IDF right there. I'm sure that note will come in very handy when the entire world knows that you're liars and you've deliberately excised your nations from any international criminal proceedings. God bless our floaty potato. Greta is incredibly brave. I half expected them to check their way to online counsel, sort of people that advise Randy Fine and Ron DeSantis, you know, the Yair Netanyahus of the world, and kill her for a tiny ultra-far-right PR that they could squeeze out of that. I really actually expected that based on how things are going along. I expected them to just murder her. Like they actually did that with a similar situation in 2010. There was no celebrities on board. They killed everybody on the ship. 2010, so no excuses about it's a war. It's got a war. Also, remember the USS Liberty, that Israeli planes strafed people coming out of the lifeboats in, that they blew up with submarines, that they strafed people coming out of lifeboats in. They killed so many people on our research vessel. And the USS Liberty is something that you weren't allowed to talk about for many, many decades. And now we finally are. Because they pushed it too hard and they alienated too many people, and now entire platforms have literally like broken the ground to allow for these old platforms like the one I'm on right now, these tried and true things that we use every single day, that we use to put our mood right with music, that we use to learn about the world and all the history of it. This Library of Alexandria that I'm speaking on right now, we can now speak freely specifically because the people that we weren't allowed to criticize pushed it way too far. And pushed it way too far. They weren't intelligent. They were just lazy and sloppy and selfish and hedonically self-indulgent about their domination of people. And like it probably felt real firm when Biden was the president. But I've noticed a tone shift recently. I'm pretty excited, let me tell you. Humanoid robots are not the first robots you'll see on the streets. Quite the contrary. The first robots you'll see operating along the territory of your day-to-day lives are already there. Those little rolling carts with eyes. Only instead of a tasty little treat, it'll be carrying CS gas or a flashbang or something even more intense. I've already seen them deploy grenades on hostage situations with little RC cars. That's the future. That's what they're doing in drones. You can see it. You can go and you can see footage of first-person drones, FPVs, crashing into vehicles that are driven by people and exploding. It's a little terrifying, gotta admit. And now birds are making nests out of the fiber optic cables that are attached to the drones so that the drones can pierce through radar jammers. Yeah. Like you literally hear... and you see this big string coming along, and then just go, and like, runs right into you and explodes. Great stuff we're dealing with, military-industrial complex. Gotta love Eisenhower for giving us that term, but like actively creating with his own two hands and his own decisions the military-industrial complex he just talked about. He would have said the congressional military-industrial complex, right, Tulsi Gabbard on Joe Rogan, but still got a note. He was a huge, cornerstone for the construction of it. Based on everything I've seen so far, Irish people are actually really intelligent. This is something I'm learning now for the first time. Not only is it statistically anomalous that the most Irish places in our country, Maryland, Montana, and Vermont, etc., actually have the highest IQs and test scores in the entire nation. Not joking. You know who has the lowest? California. You know who's the lowest among that? Silicon Valley. You hear from people who are in Silicon Valley? Yeah, these tech companies deliberately hire stupid people who won't rock the boat. If you're an intelligent person, you actually get a mark on your name that you're not allowed to work in that town. It was never true that Irish people are naturally swarthy or crude. Quite the contrary. There is just so much anti-Christian, pro-modernity, pro-slavery, anti-Celt propaganda that has been deployed by the very post-Charlemagne Germanic societies, like that of 11th century Norway, that has divided European people. Spaniard from Brit, Dutch from Swede, French from German, Anglo-Saxon from Irish. There was never any reason for this. Unless you look towards the goals of the Jewish bean counters inside these Germanic societies, the one High King Thorlabog, our Irish monarch, expelled from our lands the moment their sorry carcasses washed up on our beautiful banks of the Emerald Isle. And I implore all of my European kin to not fall for subjective, arbitrary, white purity spirals. Okay? Like, for real. It really don't mean nothing. Like, I've always heard Irish aren't white. Well, why? You're literally cutting out some of the most valuable European real estate right there. Why? Specifically because it's a modern, worshipping, Freemasonic, it is something to unseat Christendom. And one thing the Irish will never do is give up Christendom, give up Christ, ever. They'll never do it, ever, never. The Irish race will completely be erased from this earth by the time they give up Christ. I guarantee you, I give you my word. Apparently, if you're a terrorist as a child in Israel, you can get out of your mandatory IDF drafting. That's the strats. So there might not even be as many terrorists in Israel as we think. They're just saying that so they can get out of mandatory IDF drafting. Maybe. That's what Ben Gvir did. Now that is a square-headed freak right there. Oh my gosh, a guy looks like he could play a live-action Minecraft character right there. Oh, also, Netanyahu's fetid hag of a wife's pussy smells like rotting octopus stuffed in a corpse flower. Fun fact, I learned that for a fact from a very, very credible source, and it is 100% true. 100% true. Oh, man. Every single person that woman steps into the same room as. Oh, they remember that for the rest of their life. Oh, you got people throwing up. Oh, man. It's a disaster, honey. It's wild that they want so many people to become resistance liberals over Trump's tolerable flaws. And what is a resistance liberal exactly, you might ask? It's somebody that is willingly submitted to thraldom, ironically enough, to the Democratic Party that doesn't give a single care about you or Trump, ultimately. They fundraise really well when Trump's office. They don't care. They don't care. But I care. Love you guys. Stay hydrated. Exercise. Plant some cool stuff. Today I just got some, hello moth friend. Today I just got some peppermint and some lemon balm seeds inoculated into some picor. Yeah, coming along nicely. All right, y'all. Hope everyone has a good one. Cheers.